Welcome to Resist the Empire, a libertarian view of the Star Wars universe. This is your one-stop shop for news, events, and topics in the Star Wars canon. From a libertarian perspective, here are your hosts, Brian McQuaid and Roger Paxton.
Welcome to Resist the Empire. My name is Brian McQuaid.
And I'm Roger Paxton.
How's everyone doing tonight? Doing good?
Fantastic. I always love doing this show. I'm always excited. So let's do it.
Always looking forward to it. I got my Boba Fett shirt on, and your wife gave us these awesome light up lightsaber lollipop things. If you're on video, you can see it.
I mean, do I have the best wife ever or what?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I've got the Jedi one. You've got the Kylo Ren one coming out the side there.
And it tastes really good, too. I guess this is our 40th anniversary present.
I guess, yeah. Better than I thought it would taste, that's for sure. I was a little worried. But, so there was a Millennium Falcon piano, and you said you took a look at this video.
I did. It was slick.
Yeah, so there's this music video out there. It's Sonia Belasova, and she's playing different Star Wars theme music, and they made up a couple like custom pianos, and this is an older one. This is like a year or two ago, I think, and so she goes through like just a big medley of Star Wars music, and she's got a couple different ones. She has the Millennium Falcon one and the R2 one, which is really sweet.
Yeah, both of them are really well put together pianos. They sound great, and but I definitely think the R2 one looks better than the Millennium Falcon one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna save my money for that. But the Millennium Falcon one was up on eBay. It did not get any bids. I was watching it intensely throughout the last week or so, and they were looking for like $7,500 on this.
Ouch.
So my guess is they'll probably relist it later. I don't know, whatever.
I'm sure.
And then, and in the notes, you can see the video for that. That was pretty cool. One of our listeners, James D., he is like, hey guys, that was Billy D. Williams voicing Lando. You
I felt kind of stupid. I felt really stupid about that because I mean we were sitting here commenting about how great his voice sounded.
I know, and I feel like at some point I knew that, but then it just kind of got lost in my mind a year or so ago.
But in my defense, I just saw Billy D. Williams at Celebration, and he was on stage, and his voice sounded shaky, and he just didn't sound like himself to me. Right. So that's why I never even imagined that it could have been the same voice because he's older and it just didn't sound like him at Celebration.
Yeah,
boy, was I wrong. Thanks, James, for pointing that out to us.
But James did make a good point. They do this Rebels Recon show for every episode of Star Wars Rebels, and they kind of talk more in depth about things that happened in that episode and like behind the scenes kind of stuff as well. And they mentioned it in there. And so maybe we can take a look at those. I was looking at the times for those, and they look like 10 to 12 minutes maybe for each episode. So that's another 20 minutes. And again, we watch these right before we record. So it's just kind of one of those things like, I don't know if we're going to invest that time as well to do it. But maybe I'll poke around there earlier in the week if I have a chance and take down anything noteworthy that people might find interesting. Yeah. On the subject of Lando, did you get a chance to see this Cloud City Board of Tourism? So Billy D. Williams, he was acting in the Lando part for the the administrator of Cloud City, and it's like a Cloud City Board of Tourism video, and I think they were kind of advertising his son's music or something like that. His son's band, something like that. But it was pretty funny. It cracked me up.
Yeah, we'll have a link to it in the show notes. You don't want to miss it. And it's it's newer Billy D. Williams, so he's definitely put on some weight, put on some age.
It was pretty funny though.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So an earlier episode, we were talking about the Empire being specious. Actually, we've mentioned this multiple times, multiple episodes.
How could you not talk about it on a libertarian podcast about Star Wars?
So, I've been reading, I just finished Aftermath Life Debt. And there was a passage in there from Sinjir Rathvelis, and he was thinking to himself this, and I thought it was very pertinent to the subject. And he thought to himself, the prime operator within all Imperial ranks was the human being. Aliens were by and large unwelcome within its labyrinthine order because aliens were seen as different. They were serfs and slaves, or at best obstacles. They needed to be tamed or removed or ignored.
And we see that a lot. I mean, Kashyyyk was obviously turned into a slave planet, and the Wookiees were turned into slaves. But we also, and you haven't read Tarkin, the book yet.
No.
I'm not Tarkin, Thrawn. And even though he is an Imperial officer and is going through all of that, it's clear that he's treated differently because of being an alien.
Yeah.
It even starts at the academy when he first joins the Imperial Academy and goes on through the rest of his career. So even though Thrawn is so brilliant and so cunning and does so much for the Empire, he still is looked out by the vast majority of the Empire with derision.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. I mean, but I don't know, maybe that's a good thing for the rebels that they refuse to find genius in other species in a lot of ways and ignore some of that genius so the rebels can take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Get wits from all of the different species. Yeah. And you found this older article, which I gave a good read. It was called George Lucas Nearly Wrote a Perfect Prequel Trilogy. He just didn't notice. And
there were a lot of things, to be clear, in this article that I disagreed with.
Yeah.
And it comes from the perspective that, a lot of people have issues with the prequels. And, while I have issues with every single Star Wars movie that's been put out, there's been some bad things in all of them, let's be fair. I think the prequel trilogy gets a bad rap that's unnecessary because I think there are a lot of amazing things in the prequel trilogy. So there's a lot of things in this that I disagree with, but especially this piece that you're about to bring up.
Yeah, and this piece in particular, and we're bringing it up because it mentions libertarianism. And it says, it basically... it talks in this article about the Jedi being a hardcore conservative cult. And a lot of the things they say about the Jedi Order are true.
Yeah.
And they're not off the mark. But David Houghton, who's the author of this article, he clearly doesn't understand what libertarianism is about.
And in David's defense, a lot of libertarians don't either. And that's why I am such a stickler on the definition of libertarianism. A lot of people give me some flack sometimes because I'm so adamant about making sure that libertarianism has a definition, a true definition, and it's not wishy-washy because that gives a bad impression to people who throw that word around and
bend it into things that it is
exactly.
not.
And I think that's the genesis of this quote. But
he states in the article, this is what he says. He says, the Sith, on the other hand, are staunch libertarians, which is laughable right off the bat. Right? They accept no oversight or control from the state. That part's true. Right. They don't accept oversight or control from the state. They practice a self-centered philosophy and value personal freedom over social responsibility.
Personal freedom for only themselves, though.
Exactly.
And that's the key.
Yeah. Now, so some of that bits were true there. They accept no oversight or control from the state. All right, and the reason they don't is because they're the state.
Right.
Right.
That's
the whole point.
He's called Emperor Palpatine for a reason.
Exactly. Let's keep in mind how much initiation of force was used against others, by them. Again, that's an underpinning of libertarianism.
Can you get any more status than an empire, for crying out loud?
Yeah, I just didn't. It was just hilarious to me. The line right off the top, staunch libertarians. Like, I had lost it right there when I was reading that. So.
Well, and let's talk about that because, the Sith do value personal freedoms for themselves, but who does that remind us of? It reminds me of a lot of conservatives who want personal freedoms for what they believe, but they don't want you to have personal freedom for what you believe.
Limit
for example,
others.
Right. They want to have personal freedom for their religion or for, whatever. But then they don't want to give gays the right to marry, and they don't want to give, other people rights that they disagree with.
Yeah.
That's completely statist because they will use the force of government to stop you from doing those things. Right. That's why gays haven't been able to be married until just recently because government stopped them. So if anything, the Sith are more like conservatives than they are libertarians by a long shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go back to revisit the specious thing we were just talking about.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We're, completely alienating ourselves from the aliens.
Right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Go figure.
Tatooine Times. Here's the latest news you need to know from the Star Wars canon movies, TV shows, books, comics, and more.
So a couple little tidbits here before we get into some articles. Mace Windu's getting a 5-issue comic miniseries starting in August.
And I can't tell you how excited I am about this. I mean, there's a reason why we chose the purple lightsaber for the logo of Resist the Empire podcast, because both of us are big fans of Mace.
Yeah.
So I know you're just excited as I am.
Looking forward to it. I'm actually in the middle of the Darth Maul comic series right now, and I need to pick up the latest one.
Yeah, see, I wait until they put out, the semi-annuals, the ones that have 5 or 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So I get those because they're
think
more
the mall's
collectible.
the mall is going to be like this one. I think it's just going to be like 5 comics and then that's it. But I got you.
Yeah, they're also doing that with Phasma and several others as well.
Right.
So.
And earlier this month, in case you guys haven't gotten around to it yet, was Rebel Rising and Guardians of the Whills were released. Both of these are novels. The Rebel Rising might be a junior novel that follows Jyn Erso's.
Rebel Rising is a young adult, and Guardian of the Whills is junior.
Okay, all right.
So, and let me tell you though, there are some seriously adult things in Rebel Rising. So don't let it fool you that it's a young adult novel.
Yeah.
It's definitely a mature young adult novel.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it was brilliantly done. It was beautiful seeing. It basically takes where Jyn Erso left off when she was, left by her parents in that hole and picked up by Saw Gerrera, and it literally ends right as the movie Rogue One picks up.
Gotcha.
And it is a beautiful piece that fits right in there and gives you so much information on her
Fills in
progression
those gaps.
and her relationship with Saw. And it's almost as much a Saw story as it is about her, because it really gets into Saw and what made Saw who he is as well. Yeah. I highly recommend picking that one up.
Nice. Yeah, and hopefully we find out a little bit more in the next season of Rebels as well about Saw.
I'm sure we will. Yeah, absolutely. They've already shown that he's going to be in season 4, so.
Yeah. And then Diego Luna was on set at the Han Solo filming, and we dropped a link in here. It doesn't say much. That's essentially what it says, but that's pretty interesting, and that could be very cool. Might get some Cassian Andor in that film.
Well, and it makes sense because they would both be, of similar age at the time that things were going on in that time period. Yeah. Cassian was all over the place, doing things for the rebels. So clearly there would be reason for them to possibly bump into each other. So that's going to be fantastic to see because I loved his character. And of course, Luna did a fantastic job of portraying that character. He's such a complex character, like we were talking before the show. Yeah. And I really love those complex characters that, he's a good guy, but he also does some pretty tough things too. He makes some tough calls. Tough choices.
Before we started recording, we were talking about how libertarian is he? Right. I mean, because there's some real gray area, mucky stuff here going on with him. I mean, he's doing wet work essentially for the rebels, and he's on the side of the good guys. Right.
But at the same time, it is a time of war.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely a gray area. Yeah. But he's such a complex character, and he does such a good job of pulling that off in the movie. Yeah. So I'm certainly glad that we're even if it's just a small bit piece. Yeah. It's going to be great to see that kind of tie in.
Yeah, and we were also talking about the possibility of maybe they tie in the term fulcrum into the movies as well.
Right, because in the Rogue One visual guide, it says that one of Cassian's aliases is Fulcrum. So clearly he was a Fulcrum agent at some point in his career. Yeah. So that would be really cool if they tied that in, because obviously they dropped it in the visual guide for a reason. Yeah. They wouldn't have just dropped it in there if there's not a reason for it.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see that revealed later on. So Vanity Fair reveals 4 character covers for their June The Last Jedi issue.
Man, what a...
Vanity Fair has just revealed the 4 covers of their June issue, which will focus on The Last Jedi. The covers feature all the main characters from the movie. The actual coverage of the story will happen in the following days, as Vanity Fair will share interviews with the cast, other interesting things about the movie. So basically we have a Rey and Luke cover. Then there's a Finn, Poe, Rose, and BB-8 cover. Then there's a Kylo, Hux, and Phasma cover, and they non-helmets for both of them as well. And then the Leia cover.
And the Leia cover is so elegant and so just beautiful. It's such a great tribute. And of course, when you've got, Annie Leibovitz doing it, they're going to be fantastic. So she's such a great photographer.
Yeah, they were really great photos, all of them. And then and then this was the big story, cover story, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, the definitive preview from VanityFair.com. And this is essentially one of the biggest articles here. Yeah. So there's a couple different parts out here. I didn't just pull like one excerpt. It was a very long article, and I encourage everyone to go read it. There was some pretty good stuff in there. The thing that made me laugh the most was Fisher had a bigger role to play in The Last Jedi. General Leia Organa logs significantly more screen time in Episode 8 than she did in 7. Isaac, who filmed several scenes with Fisher, said that, like Hamill, she delivered a rich performance, giving her all as an actor, rather than treating Leia's part as an exercise in feel-good sentimentalism. We did this scene where Carrie had to slap me, he said. I think we did 27 takes in all. And Carrie leaned into it every time, man. She loved hitting me. Ryan found such a wonderful way of working with her, and I think she really relished it.
Well, and I'm so glad that we are going to see such a big part of Leia in this one. But, one thing that Kathleen Kennedy has said was that 9 was supposed to be Carrie Fisher's movie. 7 was all about Rey. Yeah. And of course, Han Solo and extension of that. 8 is going to be all about Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
9 was supposed to be Leia's movie.
Yeah.
And of course, now they've had to go back to the drawing board and basically completely rewrite Episode 9.
Yeah.
So again, and I've said it before, but that terrifies me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it could work out great because we saw the changes in Rogue One. A lot of late-minute changes had a big impact and made the movie great.
Yeah.
So
that actually, you said a good bit of what I pulled out for the most heartbreaking part, and that was Fisher completed her part in Episode 8 late last summer when principal photography on the film wrapped. She was having a blast, said Kennedy. The minute she finished, she grabbed me and said, "I'd better be at the forefront of 9. Because Harrison was front and center on 7 and Mark is front and center on 8. She thought 9 would be her movie, and it would have been." Yeah.
I should probably read the notes before the show notes you put together so well that I might add. That, I should have read that.
And,
but yeah, that is certainly heartbreaking. And I don't think there's a single person who's a Star Wars fan who is not sad over the loss of Princess Leia. But I do have to say that the photo inside the Vanity Fair of her and Luke together.
Yeah.
I mean, her and Mark Hamill together was just a beautiful shot, and they really did a good job in the article, and in the pictures of paying tribute to such an incredible lady, the princess that we'll all miss.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
But the most interesting thing that I saw in the pictures was, if you recall from the Last Jedi trailer that we talked about this. There's a brown glove that touches over the book with the Jedi symbol.
Yes.
And all the speculation was, whose glove is that? Rey doesn't have gloves. We didn't see Luke Skywalker with gloves. Well, in this picture, on the cover with Rey and Luke, they are very obvious to make sure that he's showing his hand with a brown glove on it.
Yeah.
So clearly that's going to be Luke looking at this Jedi book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is that was a really nice way to reveal that.
Yeah. So then I just kind of bunched up all of the new information from this article that I saw in here. So Finn's in a bacta suit. That's what he's in. I think most of us kind of assumed it was something like this.
Some sort of a medical pod, yeah.
Yep. Benicio del Toro's character looks interesting. We see a photo of him, but apparently he is unnamed in the film, at least as far as we know right now. They refer to him as DJ. That's what the filmmakers...
And his character, I think, is the one I'm most excited about because I love Benicio del Toro's acting.
Yeah.
He was in a movie years ago where, goodness, I can't remember what the name of it was, but he was basically this guy who was on a run. He had to make a knife. He was going up against, I can't remember the movie now, but his acting since then has always just compelled me. There's a lot of speculation, though. Have you heard about what DJ may stand for?
I haven't heard what it might stand for, but I know that it apparently does have some kind of meaning.
Some people are speculating that it stands for Dark Jedi.
Interesting.
That would be fascinating.
Very interesting.
Here's, maybe another Jedi, former Jedi that's out there that's more of a dark Jedi type. Maybe not a Sith, but more of a darker Jedi.
And if this is the rumor that's going around, I would be very hard-pressed to find that people are not trying to tie this in to Ezra once again.
Oh, they already are. I mean, there's been lots of speculation on the interwebs that this guy might be Ezra.
Yeah.
Which would be fascinating. That would be such a great way to tie it in. I'm not sure that I buy that.
Yeah, I'd love it, but
I'd love it.
I would be very surprised if that
Would
was
be,
the case.
Star Wars generally in the past has put in, small things to kind of tie the pieces together.
Yeah.
Not something as big as that.
Right.
So I would be surprised if that is Ezra. But man, that would be slick.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at the same time to see them try and tie these different projects closer together as well, though. I know, like you said, in the past, usually they're smaller things where we go, oh, hey, that's, XYZ,
Right.
whatever.
Like
it would
say
be
Chopper and the Ghost in
in the
Rogue
background.
One, just kind of in the background, right?
Yeah, it would be nice to see pieces come together, even bigger pieces. So, yeah, very cool. Rose Tico, she's played by Kelly Marie Tran. She has a sister in the movie called Paige, who's played by Veronica Nyo, and it's probably safe to assume she's got a much smaller role, because otherwise she would be in the foreground as well, with all the festivities and stuff that's been going on. I'd also be surprised if she wasn't killed off to start Rose's journey as well, especially in that explosion that we see.
Yeah, when it looks like the Imperial, while they're attacking what looks like a hangar, right?
Yeah. So we'll look forward to that and see what happens there.
And let's just, Kelly Marie Tran, she was at Celebration, and darn it if she just did the cutest thing. She's so bubbly, and I mean, she's going to be a great addition to Star Wars, I think, as an actress, but also just as a human being, as a character of going to different events and being interviewed and stuff. She's just such a bubbly, happy person. She's pretty cool.
Looks like a very happy person.
She does. She
looks pretty cool. And then what else we got here? There is a YouTube video link I dropped on here as well, and the I'd be surprised if Paige wasn't killed off to start Rose's journey. I had that thought independently before I watched this video, people. Okay, so I'm not copying this guy, but I found this afterwards, and I was like, that's what I thought. But that was actually a pretty good wrap up, of everything they've got in this article as well. So that's why I dropped that in there. I probably wouldn't have included it really if he didn't give Gwendolyn Christie props. One, I love Gwendolyn Christie. All right, so I'm a big Brienne of Tarth fan.
I mean, so talk about another great series of movies or TV shows. Game of Thrones, and you've read the books, right? Or have you?
Yes,
yeah, such great books.
So, but not only that, this guy references theories that Phasma might have been Sindel from the Battle of Endor. Now, have you seen Battle of Endor or Caravan of Courage?
No,
these are the Ewok movies, or the Endor movies.
Oh,
and they're notoriously bad. Not like Star Wars Christmas special bad,
right?
But they're pretty bad. Yeah, Caravan of Courage especially is pretty terrible.
I'll have to check those out. Surely they're out there on the YouTubes somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. If not, I'm pretty sure I got them kicking around, so we should definitely watch them at some point.
For sure.
But Sindel's like the little girl in Battle for Endor, and she's like this cute little girl who's got this blonde hair that's very similar to Gwendolyn Christie. So I think that's why he did that.
Awesome.
It cracked me up. I love that movie as a kid. But there's a ton of photos in here, and there is one short video as well. One of the scenes they were showing looked like the casino area or whatever that they're talking about, and a lot of different alien species and really posh clothing, I suppose, for this type of atmosphere. Really cool shot.
And the speculation is that that's where that Cassian and that Poe and Rose will be making their way to this planet, which is Canto Bight, I think. Canto Bight.
Yep.
And they're going to be hopefully, supposedly trying to find DJ there. That's the speculation now. Benicio del Toro's character. And the picture of that is really cool because it shows lots of different species. But interestingly, the vast majority of people in the picture are human, even though there are some other species.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting thing because, it's obviously a very wealthy planet, very posh, Casino Royale style. That's what they were kind of going for based on what I've read. But
certainly by the photos.
Yeah. But it's very interesting that most of them are human. Yeah. There's one character in the picture that a lot of people speculated was a Bothan because he kind of has that face that almost looks like the drawings of Bothans in the past. And
they put the kibosh on.
Right, Pablo Hidalgo changed his Twitter handle to not a Bothan for several days.
Really a shame. And it makes me wonder if that had more to do with like, hey, we do want to do a story about the Bothans at some point, and maybe they want to hold off and kind of let somebody else's creative juices take over for that. But
I'd love to see him on the big screen just because there is such a kind of a mystique behind the Bothans.
Yeah.
So that'd be great.
Yeah. So Han Solo movie leak behind the scenes video reveals very exciting scene. And this is from theexpress.co.uk. Star Wars filming in the untitled Han Solo movie has continued with video emerging of what is allegedly a race sequence. The iconic character played by Alden Ehrenreich is apparently racing a pod car in the spinoff, with scenes being shot for it over the weekend. Leaked footage from Making Star Wars doesn't give much away, with the car being pulled by one truck while another camera-loaded vehicle drove alongside it. Glimpses at the pod car itself are incredibly fleeting, and it's not clear Ehrenreich's actually inside it. The filming's taking place at Foley Power Station, which is near Southampton in the south of England. I would love it if we had something, and it doesn't have to be like pod racers, but even something similar to that, because that was definitely one of the more exciting parts of that movie.
Well, we know that Han Solo is a risk taker, and we know that he's an adrenaline junkie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, knowing that he would be involved in those, in those types of activities, those kind of races, that would be, that would be very typical for his character.
Yeah.
And going to the Bloodlines book that we were talking about earlier tonight. The Bloodlines book, which really follows Leia, but it also has Han in it because they're married at this point.
Yeah.
No, wait, was it Bloodlines? Yeah. So anyway, there's a scene where it's in one of the comics, the Han Solo comics, where Han Solo goes to be in a race, a ship race, but he's actually doing it to help the rebels.
To help,
right. To
gather up informants or whatever.
And that was the comics. It wasn't Bloodlines. But he definitely is kind of that adrenaline junkie because he really, and it kind of shows, he really gets into this and almost gives up the mission to win the race in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
It was really, really cool sequence of stuff.
Yeah. So, and then we have, so how did R2-D2 end up with Star Wars The Force Awakens map to Luke Skywalker?
Yeah.
And this is from digitalspy.com, and so, all right, so this is what it says. One part we could never quite get our heads around was R2-D2's role in the film. He sat collecting dust in low power mode all the time Luke Skywalker was in exile, only to wake up and deliver an important piece of the map to Luke's hiding place at just the right moment. It turns out that our favorite droid acquired the map way back in A New Hope when he was plugged into the Death Star's computer. We had the idea about R2 plugging into the information base on the Death Star, and that's how we were able to get the full map and find where the Jedi temples are. The Force Awakens co-writer Michael Arndt explained to Entertainment Weekly, I believe that is, EW, in the aftermath of the film's release. The idea that R2 had the map for years before it became useful feels, to us, like a satisfying way of tying back into the original trilogy.
Yeah.
So these are my thoughts. I disagree completely.
And I'm with you on this one.
Are you? Because I didn't even talk to you about this before the show, and I was curious how you felt.
Yeah, it seems way too contrived. And basically what it is, we're trying to fix something we screwed up. We left this big plot hole, so let's try to find a way that we can fix this plot hole. And they didn't fix it well, in my opinion.
I think one of the things that bothers me is sometimes people see plot holes where it's not necessarily a plot hole. I mean, just because something isn't described or explained doesn't mean it's a plot hole.
Right. Or they could have left that open for somebody else to fill that hole later.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, it was a hole. I mean, how all of a sudden, was R2-D2 just sitting over here shut down, and all of a sudden he's got this map?
Yeah.
It seemed a little bit contrived to me for the movie.
Okay.
But leave that open. Don't try to fill it up with some nonsense just because you got people pressuring you. Leave it open for one of the books or comics to maybe tie that up later.
This my problem is this opens up way too many more questions than it does answers. I mean, literally, I had to list off all the questions I have, and I'm even thinking of more now that I have after reading my list. Like, all right, first, why would R2 do that, right? And would he do it on his own accord?
You mean take the plans from the Death Star?
From the Death Star, right. Or even know that they were there to begin with. Like, he was usually, when he was plugged in, he was trying to do something, a specific purpose, right?
Right, and let's be clear that at that point, he knew little about the Jedi because his memory had been wiped.
Yeah.
So his only experience with Jedi were Kenobi and Skywalker, who was barely a Jedi.
Well, they wiped 3POs. I don't know if they wiped R2s. I remember in 3, Organa
said wipe the droids.
I thought he said 3PO, the protocol droid.
Okay, now you've got me wondering.
Yeah, now I'm wondering too, so I had to go back and check. But, so, did Obi-Wan tell him to do this? And if he did, why would Obi-Wan tell him to look for those maps? Really, he's just hoping at this point Luke can learn the Force and defeat Vader and bring balance, right? When he did die and he came back as a Force ghost, he never said, "Hey, check out the maps on your droid while we were on the Death Star." No, he said, "Go to Dagobah, learn from Yoda." Now, would Luke have told R2 to get this? I doubt it. He's just some farm boy, right? He's not gonna think about what. Did he even know there were these temples out there? And then my other question is, why would that kind of thing even be stored on the Death Star?
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me. It feels very forced and awkward.
Yeah, unless they were, the Empire obviously had reasons that they wanted to find Jedi temples and things. So maybe maybe they were using those maps to try to find the Jedi temples. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you're right. It does seem very contrived.
I mean, we're talking about. I'm trying to remember when the Death Star was starting to be built. I mean, even when it was close to being finished, I mean, how many years after the Order was wiped out, by this point? Right. Why would that kind of information even be stored there?
Sure.
It didn't make much sense to me. And honestly, I was a little disappointed that not only that it felt forced, but this article was like, "Oh, this is satisfying," right. And my reaction was completely opposite.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it presents more questions than answers, and again, it just feels contrived. Oh, we've got to come up with some reason. I don't like that. Fit it into the story somehow that actually makes sense. Going back to the R2 having his mind wipe, according to the novelization of episode 3. And have the protocol. And the protocol droid, Senator Organa said thoughtfully, have its mind wipe.
Yeah, so it was just 3PO.
Right.
Then. Yeah.
So, and then the captain saluted. Said C-3PO. Oh dear. Of course. But so that that does bring up the point.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, that leaves it open that R2 would remember. Would it occur to R2 to do something like this on his own accord? I mean, I just
possibly, but that still doesn't answer why Obi-Wan Kenobi had no memory of R2-D2 and A New Hope, but that's a different story.
Yeah, that's a completely different thing. Or he could have just been playing coy. Who knows?
Possibly.
Yeah.
The HoloNet, your news source for current real-world news with a libertarian Star Wars twist.
Inmate who lived upstanding life after he was mistakenly freed wins his release again. So this is from WMUR.com. A Colorado man who was sent back to prison after being mistakenly released was told by a judge Tuesday that he is a free man. Renee Lima Marion was serving a 98-year prison term for robbing 2 video stores in 1998. Video stores.
98 years for 2 robberies? That seems a bit extreme.
Yeah, that does seem quite exaggerated.
Right.
So he was released improperly in 2008. But was rearrested in 2014 when authorities realized the mistake.
So he was out for 6 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so in a 165-page decision, Arapahoe County District Court Judge Carlos Zamora Jr. said it would be utterly unjust to compel Lima Marion at this juncture to serve the rest of his extremely long sentence.
Yeah, you think?
In the 6 years that Lima Marion was free, he found a job, got married, started raising a family, and purchased a home, said his attorney Kimberly Diego. His case was unique in that sense, she said. Not all people who are rehabilitated behave that way. And rehabilitated is a bit of an awkward term here because they don't really rehabilitate people in jail.
Yeah.
Lima Marin was called an asset to society and an outstanding citizen who worked with young people, encouraging them to make good decisions, per the judge's ruling. The mix-up for the father of 2 boiled down to an error in paperwork that said Lima Marin's sentences were to be served concurrently instead of consecutively. So based on the paperwork, and an attorney who met with Lima Marin in prison to discuss an appeal told him that his sentence had been reduced to 16 years. The attorney advised him to forego the appeal and instead wait to be released on parole in 2008. Lima Marine's absence from prison wasn't noticed until January 7th, 2014, when a former prosecutor searched for his name on the Department of Corrections inmate locator website and couldn't find it. He was arrested by 11 p.m. that same day in front of his family, according to Samora's report, in order to serve the remainder of his 98-year sentence.
Wow. How long was he back in before they let him out? Did you catch that?
That I did not see in there. It may have been in there, but I only pulled a certain section of it out. But I liked the story because the guy actually did get out, turned his life around, and then at least they didn't completely screw the guy again.
Well, and how unusual is that? Because, I mean, like you mentioned, prison doesn't really rehabilitate anybody. It really turns people who are, maybe, 1 or 2 time criminals into hardened criminals.
Yeah, exactly. It's an educational center, really, for
educate you on being criminals, right. And for him to, get past all of that and turn his life around in such a way, that's amazing. Absolutely, we should leave this guy out.
Yeah, so I think this article is proof people can change despite the odds stacked against them, with our criminal justice system, that, oftentimes, as I said, it's more of an education venue than a correctional setting. I just think it's laughable that rehabilitation, all right, seriously. So earlier I was speaking about Sinjar Rathvelis, and he's an example of someone who went from being an Imperial loyalty officer to helping the New Republic forces in Aftermath.
Right.
In a sense, he served his time with the Empire, realized his errors, and corrected them to the best of his abilities. And then later on, he turns more into someone that just wants to help his friends, and he's more interested in that than the actual fight against the Empire. But which I think shows an even deeper understanding of how he realizes what he was doing wasn't right.
Right.
Well,
sadly, just I looked in this article, as of May 17th, just a couple of weeks ago, Lima Marin was still in jail.
He was still there, so they still haven't.
Right. So his attorney said that he should be released in the next day or so.
Okay.
This was May 17th. So he's probably out by now.
Right.
So he sat in prison from 2014 until a week or two ago.
That's crazy.
Heartbreaking. I can't imagine.
Government efficiency right there.
Yeah. I mean, his wife and kids. Can you imagine? Heartbreaking.
Yeah. That's 3 years without your kids, growing up and stuff.
Forget that.
Sneaker subsidy. New proposal would give cash to commuters who don't drive. This is from WAMU.org. Legislation proposed by D.C. Council member Charles Allen, Democrat from Ward 6, would require any business that pays for a worker's parking space to offer that same benefit in cash if the employer chooses to, and the employee chooses to walk, bike, or take transit to the office instead of driving. This is not the pre-tax transit or parking benefit many employers already offer. Allen's proposal deals with taxable cash paid out in addition to an employee's salary or wages. It's only fair that if you choose transit, you choose bike, you choose walk, some other way to get to work, that value should carry with you. It's about fairness for our employees, said Allen in an interview with WAMU. If an employer provides a specific parking subsidy, for example, up to $350 per month for parking, the worker would be able to cash out the amount and use it to pay for their preferred mode of transportation, even walking. Where an employer does not specify a value, the bill calls for a maximum of $255, the same amount in tax-free parking benefits an employer can provide in 2017 under IRS rules. Why would someone need money to walk to work? Well, you might buy a new pair of sneakers every 6 months, said Cheryl Court, the policy director at the Coalition for Smarter Growth. That's an oxymoron.
Right.
An advocacy organization that favors sustainability transportation over highway expansions, but it is taxable cash, he added, so you can use it how you want. And the point is, rather than only incentivizing driving and parking, why not incentivize healthier, sustainable commutes? This is typical politician thinking, okay? So this is what the politician thinks, all right? Offering the same monetary benefit in other forms to those who get the parking space, let them choose what they want. And what it's actually going to do, employers are just going to be like, whatever, I'm not doing this anymore, and just stop offering it altogether.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible shame, because the person who's walking or biking has the choice that if they want to go buy a car and then get that subsidy, or it's not really a subsidy because it's a benefit from the company.
Yeah, work benefit.
But for the government to step in and tell a company that you have to spend your money in a way that you don't want to, that is just asinine. I mean, and this is the problem with trying to make everybody equal. Yep. We're trying to equalize everybody. Yep. We try to, but what we're going to end up having is equal failure instead of equal success.
Yep.
The only way you're never going to have equal success. Not everybody is going to be as successful as others.
Yeah, and some want to be more equal than others.
Right, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I thought that was that article made me laugh.
Yeah.
Even while I was reading it, it's just comical.
It's ignorant.
U.S. airstrike on IS killed 105 civilians in Iraq's Mosul. This is from BBC.com. United States has admitted that at least 100 and I should put in here in parentheses, finally admitted that at least 105 Iraqi civilians were killed in an airstrike it carried out in Mosul in March. Yeah.
Wow.
U.S. Central Command, which will be referred to as CENTCOM because they say that in here a bunch, said it has targeted 2 snipers from so-called Islamic State with what is called a precision-guided munition. However, the strike detonated explosives that militants had placed in the building, CENTCOM said. Civilians sheltering in the lower floors were killed when it collapsed. CENTCOM said the death toll included 4 civilians and another nearby structure. Eyewitnesses claimed another 36 non-combatants were also in the building, but U.S. authorities said it had insufficient evidence to determine their status. So really, it was probably closer to 141.
Right.
CENTCOM previously said the planes had acted at the request of Iraqi security forces as coalition forces attempted to wrest control of the city from ISIS. The civilians had gathered in the lower floors of the building after being expelled from their homes by ISIS fighters, a declassified summary of the report said. Those organizing the strike could not have predicted the presence of civilians in the structure prior to the engagement, which that's garbage because we already know that there are tons of civilians still stuck in there. They're almost finishing it, and I keep up to date with what's going on in Iraq. There's only about like 3 sections of that city left that need to be taken. It's like 95% being taken over back by the Iraqi forces. But they knew going into this there was tons of civilians in there.
Well, I mean,
they were preparing for it.
You're bombing a city.
Yeah.
Who lives in cities?
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
You can't, they talk about these precision strikes. You can't have a precision strike unless you have 100% intelligence of what's on the ground, and that's impossible to do.
Yeah.
So should this be wrapped around the neck of the U.S. government? Absolutely it should.
Yeah.
These 105 civilians, or maybe 140 civilians, would still be alive had the U.S. not done this.
Yeah, and everything I was reading in the news at the time of this, there was no doubt in my mind that this is exactly what occurred, all right? But now they've delayed it for so long now, right? I mean, this came out in mid-May, right, this article. So it's they waited essentially for all that news to calm down before this kind of just slipped out there, now we'll kind of like release this. And this is like such an empire technique
right.
to me.
Right. Deny.
Yeah. And then
divert. Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually down the line, it will let it float out there. We'll have the official word out there. But by this point, people are already moving on to the next Brangelina thing. Right. So
I think Brangelina's been over for a while. But anyway, I get your point. Not that I pay attention to that.
Yeah, I have no idea. Pregnant teenager banned from graduation ceremony. This was also from BBC. A pregnant U.S. teenager branded immoral by her school and barred from its graduation ceremony is to have her own event organized by her parents.
Well,
Hold on. Let's get to the end of this because my only comments at the end of this article are for you to take this over. So Maddie Runkles, 18, who attends a small private Christian school in Maryland, has been told she is not welcome at the event on June 2nd because she must be accountable for her immorality. Instead, her parents have decided to organize a special party for their daughter the following day. The decision by the Board of Governors of the Heritage Academy in Hagerstown has drawn criticism on social media from those who say the school is showing no Christian compassion to the teenager. Heritage Academy has an opportunity to demonstrate love and grace of Jesus, instead choosing judgment and shame, tweeted at Whiny Knitter. I literally, my notes were, I'd just like to get your on-air reaction to this because you were a former minister, correct?
I was a Pentecostal minister for a couple of years, and it's not something I look back on with pleasure. It was certainly a dark time in my life. Yeah. I was a dark Jedi back then, I guess. But I start this, and my first thought was, they talk about her being immoral. Well, immoral based on whose morality? You know, I mean, this is such a crock, especially considering it was Christians that were marrying off and knocking up 12-year-olds just a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
You know, this concept that Christians have a monopoly on morality is just disgusting to me, because I happen to know someone very well who I'm very close to, who had a lot of problems in her small town because she got pregnant out of wedlock.
Yeah.
And even to the point where her youth minister, who she had such a wonderful relationship and was very close with, he refused to marry her to the guy that got her pregnant because she was living in sin.
Yeah, so the guy's trying to do right by her.
Exactly.
And then like they're shunning her away.
That's Christian morality.
Yeah.
And you know, on my show, I would have a phrase for those kind of people of the
Yeah.
lava flow. So if you want to hear the phrase I would have for them, I can't say it on this show.
Yeah,
try
we
to
keep it
this
clean
one-
here.
Yeah, we try to keep it radio friendly, family friendly.
Yeah.
But you know, the concept of morality is such a horrible, because everybody is going to use that morality against their enemies as much as possible, and that's what morality is for. You know, my morality is going to be different from your morality.
Yeah.
For example, I like fast food. You don't like fast food.
Yeah, I avoid it like it's the plague.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody has different opinions on things. Not that fast food is moral or not moral,
Right,
but
right.
you get my point. Everybody has different opinions, and if we start trying to force our version of truth or morality down on others, that's why we're in such a problem as we are today in this world, with terrorism and religious strife and religious, fighting and all of this. It's because of perceived morality, and it's absolute BS.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I got into libertarianism, is because I couldn't stand, long before I knew what libertarianism was, I couldn't stand the two-party paradigm.
Right.
It's nothing more than let's pit these two fighters against each other. It's a sports game, mentality.
Yep. It's divide and conquer.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. It's, my team is better than your team. It's tribalism, it's collectivism, and, that's pretty much the antithesis of what libertarianism is.
Yeah, and that prevents people from sitting down at the same table with each other.
Yeah, but libertarianism is about individuality. And, we believe that everyone has the right to believe whatever they choose. We don't have to respect that belief, but we have to respect their ability to hold those beliefs. For example, I don't respect flat earthers. I think they're absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I think that's insanity.
Right.
But I certainly respect their opinion, their right to have that opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
This is a crying shame, and I'm so glad to see this girl's parents, step up and do this.
Yeah, that made me happy.
Right.
Especially from the community that they're coming from, because it could be just as easy for them to give into that pressure from the religious pressure.
Yeah, that was so warming to hear, because I hope that I would have the wherewithal to do that for my kids as well.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Which Star Wars canon character will we dissect in this episode of Galaxy's Smallest Political Quiz?
Who are we doing this week, Brian?
It's Wicket.
Wicket.
I love Wicket. And we were talking earlier about Battle at Endor, and I love Warwick Davis. I was a huge Willow fan.
Yes,
and
Willow
it's
was
just
so incredible.
I love it.
That's a movie I still need to show my kids. Willow, I think they'd
Oh,
really
that's
get a
great.
kick
Well,
out
you
of
let
that.
me know, because I want to be here for it when you watch it.
Nice.
It's been
Well,
so
definitely.
long, and I love it.
We'll definitely make that happen. So what we do here is we take a Star Wars character and we kind of break them down using the Galaxy's Smallest Political Quiz to find out if they fit as a libertarian on the political spectrum. So we're going to start off with question number 1. Government should not censor speech, press, media, or the HoloNet.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree here. This one I'm throwing darts on a little bit. I think Wicket would just want to be left alone, and to me that translates to agree.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, they were so, and I hate to use the word uncivilized, because that's not really the right word, but they were
I
very.
mentioned it a couple times in here. They're primitive.
Yeah, primitive. Yeah,
and
that's a better word.
Yeah.
Much better word. And of course, so, having things like press and media and HoloNet, that would be completely foreign to them.
Right.
So, service should be voluntary. The Jedi policy on the warding of children who are force sensitive and the conscription of soldiers by the Empire is immoral.
Yeah, I went agree here. The Ewoks seem to be individualistic in nature, but they work in an obvious tight-knit community structure. I'm not. I think that Wicket thinks that it should be voluntary, given his attitude. And we don't get to hear him talk. We just know how he acts out, and what he does. But I think for Wicket in particular, I think he would agree.
Well, he was definitely one of the most individualistic of
Yes.
the tribe, and
Yes.
obviously there was a lot of collectivism in the Ewok tribe, a lot of religious type collectivism.
And you need that to survive in that primitive culture, I suppose. Yeah.
There should be no laws regarding possession of weapons for personal use.
Yeah, I said maybe. They're definitely not opposed to weapons.
Yeah, they all had spears and stuff, right.
But blasters are clearly not designed for their paws or hands, whatever those paws, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to call those paws. Repeal laws prohibiting adult possession and use of drugs.
So I'm going to go agree here. My only evidence being that I think Wicket is on something and Logray is probably his supplier.
Oh, that's terrible. You would explain that for those who may not understand?
So Logray, he's like the witch doctor guy. He's got some stuff brewing in that hut.
Of course he does. Of course he does. Some sort of medicine.
He's the medicine man.
I'm sure it was a natural medicine.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
There should be no requirement to register as a force sensitive with the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, so I'm going to go agree here. Wicket takes Leia with a very... He's a very he goes up to Leia with a very defensive and careful approach, but then he warms up to her. It gives me the sense that he takes an individual as they come along,
right?
Based kind of on what they're doing.
Well, and he would have to, because he would already have some, some evidence of humans. Obviously, the Empire had been there for a while, and he had probably run into them, and surely they're not nearly as nice to him as Leia would be.
Right.
But the fact that he still treated Leia the way he did based on his interaction with her individually, I can't disagree.
Right.
Economic issues. End imperial alliances with corporations and banking cartels. Corporatism is picking winners and losers on the marketplace. Do Ewoks have a marketplace?
Yeah, so this one, this was one of those ones where I wasn't sure. I went maybe, it's just too tough to tell. They're so primitive that I'm not really sure how I could apply anything to
so they're kind of economics was even evident in prehistoric areas, prehistoric times of trading, trading among humans and things like that. But we really just don't have any evidence of it here. So, unless there was some value to the helmets that they were using for drums.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we cover free trade in the next one, which
in government barriers to intergalactic free trade.
Yeah, and so this one I feel like I can go agree here because even though Wicket and the Ewoks, they're primitive, I feel like trade with involvement from only two parties would best be suited for him or them. So like I feel anyone else getting involved with a trade, because it's such a basic level, they're so primitive, it would be like, I'll trade you this food for this spear or whatever,
right,
you know what I mean,
necklace or whatever the case might be.
That fact, anyone else getting involved into that transaction, I can't see it ending well for the third party. When the two people just want to try and make a deal and be left alone. Right. So I wouldn't agree here.
Science and technological advancements should not be controlled or regulated by the Empire.
Yeah, so I feel like Wicket would equate science and technology to the machines of destruction from the Empire that he's seen. So I would probably go agree here.
My only caveat to that is obviously they were a very religious type of group. Yeah. And they saw C-3PO and his...
That's true. They saw 3PO as like a god.
Right.
Yeah.
But was that due to his technology?
I thought it was more due to his form and being,
right,
more than actual technology. I wonder if they even knew that he was technology.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, they might not have been able to wrap their head around that. Yeah, that's a valid point. Where were we? The career path of individuals and the planetary division of labor should not be dictated by the Empire.
Yeah, so I think at some base level, there's division of labor going on in Wicket's community.
There has to be.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. It's just because you're a tribe, there's got to be like, all right, these guys are regular hunters.
Right. This is a warrior. This is a guy that makes necklaces.
Yeah. So now, having said that, we need to figure out like what Wicket is. Now, Wicket, he seems to be like a free thinker of the group. He is like out in the middle of nowhere, like by himself, just messing around, like kind of the free thinker, the creative mentality. You know, he's kind of out doing his own thing. He's just not like the others.
And more than likely, he's the one that convinced the rest of everybody else that Leia was cool, that, you know, you need to leave her alone, because you saw that their interaction with the rest of the humans was completely different. They trapped them. They captured them.
I'll get back to this.
Okay.
but I'm going to agree for now on this. Now, the Ewok culture as a whole, I would have to go, maybe there's clearly division of labor, but that may have more to do with just surviving in their primitive,
Well, it's basic economics, and it's basic economics for a reason, because it works, and humanity gravitates to that.
Yeah.
The last one in economic issues is taxation is theft, including sovereign planetary funds taken by the Empire as tribute.
Yeah, so again, Wicket's part of a tribal, primitive culture. I'm pretty sure they have no form of taxation there. It's just, you do what you do. You need to get stuff done. This is what we need to do to eat tonight, essentially. With that information and not knowing how the species will evolve over time, I just went maybe because we really have no idea what direction they're going here.
Well, right. And they may have had very little, property, personal property. I mean, it may have been more of a collectivist group, almost like a commune, where everybody's property was kind of everybody's.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I killed this animal for food. We're all going to pitch in, put it together, and eat it.
Right.
Kind of thing. And that certainly lends itself to a primitive society like that much better than it does to a society like ours. So that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
And so that puts us at 90 of a personal score and 80 of an economic score, which puts them pretty solidly in the libertarian quadrant.
It does.
But that opens us up to our bonus question. Did this character initiate Force in the Star Wars universe canon?
Yeah, so, and I told you I'd get back to this earlier when we were talking about Leia and Wicket bringing Leia back. So, in Return of the Jedi, and actually in the Battle of Endor, Wicket only uses Force, that we see him, only uses Force in defense of himself or others. While the Ewok culture is ready to eat the rest of the crew.
Well, it might have been tasty. To be fair, they could have been tasty.
When they did not, and that's actually a good topic for another time. We should, cannibalism, maybe, touch on that.
Interesting, yeah.
When they did not do anything to the Ewok clan, though for them it wouldn't be cannibalism.
Oh, right. That's a good point.
So I'm not sure Wicket himself would make the decision to eat these people. But for all we know, Wicket may have been leading Leia back to the village in a nice, calm way to also be eaten. And for all we know, hair braiding was nothing more than some pre-meal tradition when encountering women with long hair. We have no idea to know this. I'm going to say for now that Wicket is libertarian. I'm saying it tentatively, though.
I can see where you're going there. He might have been trying to kill her with kindness, and so he didn't.
It's just me out here, but maybe I can get this, nice big meal back if I
do things.
Do things a different way. Probably not the case here, but
very possibly. Yeah. So libertarian, but tentatively.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Resistance Review, your favorite Star Wars canon movies, TV shows, books, comics, and more, reviewed by our hosts.
So this week's Rebels review, we start off with episode 13 and 14, the getting close to the end of season 1.
Yeah, almost there.
Yeah, very excited. Man, the ending. Oh, can't wait. Anyway, we'll do that in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So episode 13, season 1 was called A Call to Action. And so this one opens up with Grand Moff Tarkin, one of my favorite Imperials. I just love him. And if you haven't read the Tarkin novel, read it. It's a fantastic novel. Anyway, so Tarkin is coming to Lothal, and because he wants to help stamp out this insurgent activity from the rebels on the planet that he keeps hearing about, because frankly, it's making everybody look bad. And Tarkin says that his goal is to set out to prove that there are no Jedi on Lothal, because he knows that they're all dead. I mean, that's what he says. Yeah. It's impossible. So we then cut to the crew of the Ghost being chased down by Imperials on speeder bikes through a town on Lothal, and the crew, of course, you know how they are. They use some trickery. They get away from the Imperials, and then they head back to the Ghost with the supplies that they had stolen.
Yeah, so they watch a holo vid of Governor Travis. He was the former oh, I'm the rebel guy,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, just this last episode we talked about his conversion.
He's
His traitor.
He's talking about his recommitment to the Empire and setting out a reward for his capture on the rebels of Lothal. And this gives Kanan the idea of using transmission to get their message out, using the Empire's own communications towers to give inspiration to the citizens and get the truth out about how life really is under the Empire on Lothal.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, the crew of the Ghost, they have this idea of putting in a data spike at one of the Imperial-owned communications towers on Lothal to gain access and send out this signal of hope to the people. And during their planning, they encounter, they're actually overlooking this communications tower, trying to plan how they're going to take over. And they encounter an Imperial probe droid, and it's close to spotting where they've hidden their bikes on this reconnaissance mission. And Ezra uses the Force to have a Lothcat attack this probe droid to keep it from finding their bikes. And it's a really funny scene because this Lothcat is just tearing into this thing and really messes up the Imperial probe droid.
I like the this you get the view from like as if you're the probe droid.
Right.
So like you see like the outside of the camera, you just see these like claws on the front.
Yeah, it was really well put together. So the Lothcat, of course, destroys the probe droid, and Kanan, Ezra, and Sabine, take off. But the probe droid wasn't fully offline yet, and it got some video of those three leaving, and it sent that back to the Imperials, where of course Tarkin sees the video, and he gets the plan because he figures out that they're going to attack this comms tower. Otherwise, why else would they be there? So Tarkin sets up a plan to trap them at the comm tower, and hopefully, his goal is to capture the rebels.
Yeah, so Ezra's having doubts about this plan because he's afraid of losing everyone. He lost his parents because they spoke out on communication channels to inspire the citizens, so this kind of like harkens back to that. Kanan tries to tell him that some things are worth the risks involved, and they go ahead and put the plan into action, and it goes well at first, and they take control of the tower. They give Sabine 3 minutes to install the data spike to take control. Kanan and Ezra realize the Imperials have set a trap and are on their way with heavy reinforcements. So they have to change their plan, and they tell Hera to meet them all at the top of the tower for pickup. Kanan stays behind to hold them off, and everyone else is heading up the tower all the way at the top. It's really, really high.
Right, so these reinforcements ends up being a lot of stormtroopers, the Inquisitor, and Agent Callus. So what does Kanan do? He destroys the controls of the lift that's taking the rest of his team up to the top of the comms tower, so the Imperials can't follow his team. And he, of course, Kanan and the Inquisitor battle quite a bit while his team is escaping with Hera, and Kanan tells Hera to leave him behind because there's no way they can get to him with all of the reinforcements. The Inquisitor then holds Kanan prisoner until Tarkin shows up at the tower. And since Kanan, cut off access to the tower, Ezra uses that. Of course, Hera and Ezra and everybody else escaped, but they took control of the tower, so Ezra uses that communications tower to transmit their message of resistance to the citizens of Lothal anyway, just like his parents used to do, which is just great. I love that. Yeah. And to stop it, and this I just don't get. So to stop it, the Imperials destroy the tower. Instead of just putting a charge on the door that Kanan basically cut off access to, they blow up the entire tower. Now, that totally sounds like something the government
we
would do,
literally
right?
paused this episode,
Right.
I think, and talked about this for like 5 minutes, right? This is a typical government move, right?
Right.
Yeah, let's not just like take out the door, get inside, and have our guys fix this thing. No, we'll just blow up the whole tower. And not only do they take out the whole tower, but now they're like whole communications grid on the planet.
Which we find out in the next episode, right? It cuts off their entire data network.
It's so typical.
Which it then really ends up getting them. We'll get to that in the next episode. So they blow up this tower, and Ezra is back on the Ghost, and he's worried that no one heard this transmission before the tower was destroyed. But Hera, believes that people had to have heard it. Yeah. So then we get on to episode 14, Rebel Resolve.
Yeah, so this picks up with the stormtroopers and ATST are sweeping the city, trying to find the rest of the rebels. Zeb, Chopper, and Ezra, they take control of the ATST while Sabine's like holding off some stormtroopers, and they're trying to get the prison plans so they can find Kanan. And they find out instead the entire Imperial data network's apparently down.
Right, because they blew up a
the
communications tower, right.
So Hera flies in to save the day and picks up the rest of the crew while they're being attacked by another walker. And Zeb and Chopper barely make it out as it's like being exploded as they fly into the ship.
So Hera then, has a communication with Fulcrum, who tells her that Kanan is not worth going after if it compromises the main mission that they're on. Fulcrum tells them to stop searching for Kanan and to go into hiding until this is all blows over. And Ezra is in another room, and he has a feeling that Kanan is not in the Imperial Detention Center where they presume he would be, because that's generally where you take a prisoner, right?
Yeah.
But Hera tells them that they have to call off the search completely for one person that could compromise the rest of the mission. The rest of the crew ignores Hera's orders, of course. And they take off in the Phantom, leaving Hera behind to go find Kanan. And Chopper kind of distracted her while they did it, and she didn't know they were leaving at the time.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yep.
Yeah, she suspected there at the end.
Sure.
So we cut to Kanan. He's being interrogated by Callus, Tarkin, and the Inquisitor. Inquisitor tells Tarkin Jedi are trained to resist mind probes, suggests they use pain to break him, so they essentially begin torturing him with like electrode things. The crew of the Ghost, they go to Vizago to see if he's got any information on Kanan's whereabouts. He refuses to help them at first until Ezra tells Vizago that Kanan's a Jedi. Vizago just laughs. It looks like he's going to take it serious for a second, and then he just starts laughing, thinking it's a joke. And then Ezra levitates a crate with the Force and basically puts it over his head and then lets it come crashing down as he jumps out of the way. And then Ezra makes the mistake of offering Vizago anything he wants as a favor from a Jedi for his help, because it's obviously going to be something they would never normally agree to with. I can tell you that right off the bat.
You don't offer a crime lord anything that he wants. Right. So Vizago tells Ezra that since the Imperials' long-range communications are still down, I wonder why, that the Imperials are using droids to transfer data from the ground to the command ships and back and forth. Vizago says that he wants nothing for this information today, but in the future, of course, he's going to take advantage of Jedis owing him a favor. Of course he is. So when Ezra walks out, there's Hera standing there. And of course, she's furious that Ezra offered such a huge favor. Well, first of all, that they ran off. But second of all, that he offered such a huge favor to this crime lord. And Ezra convinces her that he has a plan to save Kanan based on the information that he got from Vizago. So Tarkin and the Inquisitors are still torturing Kanan in the next scene, and they're impressed with his resolve to withstand pain. And so they plan to remove him from Lothal, because obviously they're not getting anywhere. And they're going to take him to a, quote, better facility for interrogations.
So the rebels steal an Imperial droid. They replace it with Chopper. It's all painted up to look like a courier droid, and then the Imperials take the droid up to their command ship. Chopper gets in there, finds the data on where Kanan is, and then sends a signal to the rebels. Then the Ghost comes in, attacking the command ship, and they rescue Chopper. He releases an airlock, and a bunch of little stormtroopers go flying out into space, and him with it. Hera tells Ezra that she's proud of him for stepping up and taking leave, though I will say that was probably the most furious and angry I've seen Hera in this series is when they did this. But she's proud of him here for stepping up and taking leave. And then Sabine finds out that Kanan's on Tarkin's destroyer, but the ship's going to be headed to Mustafar soon. And Hera says that Kanan once told her that Mustafar is where Jedi go to die. And then it's
to be continued, of course. And of course, episode 15 is the last one of the season. We considered giving you all three tonight, but we want to make you wait a little bit. So next episode, we'll be doing episode 15 of season 1 and episode 1 of season 2.
Kickoff of season 2. So that'll be a really, really fun episode next week. And it'll be our 10th episode next week.
It will be. Yeah, absolutely. Excited about
Celebrate double digits.
Absolutely. So to help us celebrate double digits, do us a couple of favors. Check us out on Facebook. We actually do a daily Star Wars Liberty meme at noon Eastern time every day, 7 days a week on our Facebook page. So definitely check that out at resisttheempirepodcast.com/FB for Facebook, obviously. And we also, for those of you who don't see us on video, who hear us by audio, we also put out a video of all of our episodes as well, where you get to see our pretty mugs every other week. And that's on YouTube. You can get to our YouTube channel at Brian's over there making kissing faces, right? Winky faces. But you can get to our YouTube channel at resisttheempirepodcast.com/YouTube. And until next time,
may the non-initiation of Force be with you.